in the Poconos and an arrest in a cold case that goes back 13 years. Newswatch 16's Adi Iyer breaks down the complicated case.
It's been 13 years and 2 months since Stephen Lapore was first reported missing. Nearly a decade and a half later, U.S. Marshals arrested a man Tuesday they believe killed Lapore, a man named Kip Morgan. Morgan was wanted for criminal homicide, possession of a firearm, abuse of corpse, and other related charges connected to the death and disappearance of Stephen Lapore. Morgan was found Tuesday morning in Brooklyn, New York, and is currently awaiting extradition back to Pennsylvania. But to understand just how Morgan is involved in the death of Stephen Lapore, we need to go back to 2012. Lapore was last seen leaving his home, driving this van in Tobyhanna. The van was found 2 weeks later in Stroudsburg, and there was no trace of Lapore. 3 years later, in 2015, court documents show police interviewed Kip Morgan, who at the time was working for a man named Brian Hewson. Morgan said to the police in 2015 that he was asked by Hewson to kill Stephen Lapore. Court documents indicate there was a dispute between Lapore and Hewson over $15,000, but it's unclear who owed whom. And in 2015, the location of Lapore's body was unknown, but that changed 8 years later. In October 2023, Brian Hewson told detectives that Lapore was buried in the backyard of his relative's house. And 2 days later, human remains were found right where Hewson said they would be. Now, during this time, Hewson was in Florida, serving time for driving with a canceled license and possession of drugs. He was let out on probation in January 2024 and was only charged with criminal homicide, conspiracy to commit homicide, and abuse of corpse in May this year, 2025. In February, Kip Morgan was formally charged, but efforts to find Morgan were unsuccessful until Tuesday. And as for Brian Hewson, Florida court documents show he disappeared right before he was formally charged. Hewson's landlord said he moved out of his home in March, and his family hadn't heard from him for weeks prior to being charged. U.S. Marshals could not confirm or deny if they were in charge of finding Hewson. Adi Iyer, Newswatch 16, Monroe County.